Welcome everyone to yet another episode of Atomic Blackjack. Good morning, good evening, good whatever time you are watching this. As always, you know the drill. We are happy to see you here. You recall from last video, we are currently in Las Vegas. Had a bit of a rough start to day one, but as I promised, day 2 and 3, we definitely turn it around. So without further ado, let's get to it.
Alright, so I had a little bit of a late start. I wanted to get up about 3 a.m. Body was exhausted, couldn't fight it. So went back to sleep. About 6, 7 a.m. Got up, get my check. Got a water from Starbucks. Threw in some liquid IV, make sure I'm hydrated. I've been drinking a whole lot of water. And now, it's time to go play, baby.
Okay, so I've added this little mini series of clips right here because this is a perfect example of how card counters get caught. Right now, I currently have $450 out there with a 20 versus a dealer's ace. I take insurance for $225, and what do you know? Dealer has blackjack. Most people don't take insurance as a quote-unquote a sucker's bet. When you know the count, it can be advantageous at times. I then drop my bet to a single hand of $75. Now, as you will see, I do end up doubling, which means my count did end up jumping up to a true 6 or higher, but unfortunately for me, the dealer pulls 21. No fear, right after that, I do raise my bet because of all those small cards that came out and go up to a single hand of $600. This time, however, blackjack. Right there is a perfect example. As you see, I did everything a card counter can do other than split tens to get recognized, as I took insurance and won. I lowered my bet and lost, and then raised my bet again and received a blackjack. That right there is a perfect example of how and why card counters get caught. But I did everything right, and as you can see, it played off and paid off to my advantage. Right here, as you can see, I keep my max bets out there, but unfortunately for me, this time the dealer has blackjack. Can't win them all. And speaking of things that only card counters do, here you can see I have a max bet of $550 out on a 8-bet game, which I split my tens 4 times versus the dealer 6. And what do you know? I win all 4 hands when the dealer busts, netting me a profit of $1,800. So right after we split our tens, we continue with our 2 hands of $550. On one hand, we get an 11, and on our second hand, we get a blackjack. That blackjack at 3-2 pays us a total of $825. Now with this 11, we end up doubling, and we get a 10. We're not quite out of the woods yet, as the dealer flips over a 2 to make 11. But luckily for us, they pull a 7 for 18, and we net an additional $1,100.
Yeah, so I understand how happy I am. Like, you have, was it, did I leave it at the water dance or I can get up with? Gotta start off on it. Okay, so I just had a crazy experience. After my last session, I got a player's card, played rated, and I played rated because I lost about $5,000. I figured it was worth it to get the company. In the process of doing so, I somehow lost I think they gave it to me when I dropped the bill now, but I didn't realize it until I had walked halfway up the strip, which meant between where I was at in the strip, or where I went, it could have been in. I had to walk all the way back to my spot, and now I have my ID. So here's the crazy thing, it's important to remember, right? First and foremost, it's not necessarily the fact that I wouldn't be able to continue to play without my ID, or the fact that I wouldn't be able to cash out without my ID. It's not the fact that I still have, one more chips that I need to cash out, and I can't do it without ID. No. The biggest and worst factor is the fact that without ID, I cannot get on the plane again. And I don't know how I'll be able to get an ID if I'm not at home, and what I would do in the meantime to be able to get an ID. So clearly I know I gotta be a little more careful. Thank God I got my ID, everything's squared away, and now I'm on to the next spot. I can breathe, I can unclench, I can give it a rest.
So after dealing with all that, as you just seen, I took a much needed break before hopping back to the tables. Right now what you are seeing is a $1,050 payout, as I had a pair of sixes which I split and doubled one time with $350 out there. That led to one hand being paid out $700 and the other hand being paid out $350 when the dealer decided to bust. So as you may have just heard, the pit boss just told me going forward I can no longer double after I split. This is one of the rules they have on the table, and while it does affect my EV a little bit, seeing that I was still heads up and getting a pretty decent pin, I decided to continue and play on. Right after that, I go to one hand of 450. The footage is a little iffy, but I have a 14 versus the dealer's 4. I go ahead and take insurance. But unfortunately this time, the dealer does not have it and I do lose my $225. I hit, get a 7 for 21. And after the dealer draws a bunch of cards, I get paid out $450. After seeing the dealer pull all those small cards, I jumped to a single hand of $700. I thought about raising my bet, but did not. I do end up, unfortunately, losing when the dealer pulls a blackjack, so thankfully for me, I did not raise my bet. Again, I go out there with another hand of $700, except this time, I get the blackjack. A blackjack of this caliber pays $1,050, and as you just seen, the dealer did not know the correct math, and it was up to me to be able to catch the dealer's mistake, as these mistakes can very much cost you both in terms of EV and AV. Luckily I caught it and was able to get paid out correctly. After the dealer verified that I was paid out correctly, I then continued with the one hand of $700. I have a 9 versus the dealer's 10. I hit, and while you can't see it, I get an 8 for a total of 17. I stand, which was luckily just enough, as the dealer did end up having to take a hit and busted. This right here was another $700 added to the profit column. The count is still there, so of course the bet stays out there. I get a pair of 10s versus the dealer's 3. I do decide to split them, which is something that you do at a true count of 8 or higher. On this first hand, I get a 12, and on the second hand, I get a 16. Neither of these are great hands, but in these type of scenarios, you're praying that the dealer busts. And what do you know? The dealer does just that, netting me $1,400 in profit. The count is still up there, so I continue with that single hand of $700. I get a pair of 9s versus the dealer's 10. While the dealer does not have blackjack, the dealer does in fact win the hand with 2 10s for a 20. This unfortunately drops my count just a little bit, so I go to a single hand of 450. This time, however, I have a pair of 10s and I end up beating the dealer when they draw and bust out. As you can see, I don't even think about it, as I know the count has jumped up due to the remaining cards left to be dealt. So I go back up to my single hand of $700, and in this situation, I end up with a 9 versus the dealer's 9. I hit and get an 8 for a total of 17, and when the dealer flips over 19, I do lose that hand. Well, cards are still there, count is still there. Go to a single hand of $700 once more. I have a 20, and unfortunately the dealer does push when they have a 20 of their own. All these face cards drops the count all the way back down, so I go to a single hand of 125. I get a pair of 7s versus the dealer's 10, and I hit and bust out. But for whatever reason, the shoe continues to keep going, so I follow with another hand of 125. I have an 18 versus the dealer's ace, which I decline insurance. And in this situation, the dealer has it, and I do lose another 125. While that hand does end the shoe, it does not end my session here, and after the dealer gives the cards a quick shuffle, we're right back at action. Now as this new shoe starts, I go right back to minimum bets of $50. I get a 13 versus a 9, I hit for a 10 and bust out, and the bet is still $50. Now I get a 6 and a jack for 16 versus the dealer's 10. I do hit because I have a negative count. I lose, and again, just simply put out another hand of $50. Here I get an 8 versus a 2. I hit for 18. After the dealer does some pulling of their own, I do end up winning. On my next hand, I get a 15 versus the dealer's 10. I hit, I bust out once again. I don't know what's going on. This is very different from the first shoe, but these are only minimum bets and it's not the end of the world. I continue, get a 17, and the dealer pulls from their 7 too many, and I end up with a single hand win. I do decide to go ahead and raise my bets to my true 1, which is a single hand $75. I end up with a 6 versus a dealer's 10. I hit twice for a total of 19, and when the dealer has a 20, I lose. Luckily for me, however, the count does go up, and I decide to go to my true 2 bet, which is a single hand of 125. Here the dealer has a 12 versus my 14. The dealer pulls 2 cards, bust out, and I do net $125 in profit. The count doesn't change, so I continue out there with my bets. I have a 9 versus the dealer's 10. I hit and get an ace. When the dealer has a 6 and then pulls a 10 for too many, that is another 125 win. I raise my bets now to a total of 175. I get a 9 versus a dealer's ace. I quickly snap and take insurance. I do have to get the dealer to break down my change because I did not have any $5 chips on hand, and I wanted to make sure that things were paid out correctly. For whatever reason, the dealer did not understand what I wanted, so I just went ahead and had to overpay for insurance, which is not to my advantage, as the dealer does not have Blackjack. For those of you paying close attention to the money at home, I do end up losing an additional $250, which kind of sucks on top of that because I do end up losing the hand, but I was not risking to fight over $200 or over $2.50, as it just wasn't worth it to me, as the shoe was going to continue and slowing down the game was going to cost me more than $2.50. Right here, the count has jumped up. I go to $350. I end up hitting twice and I bust out, so I end up losing that money. But I see a couple of small cards come out, so that lets me know that my bet is getting ready to jump. You see me reach over, grab some more chips, and this time I go back to $450 and I get a blackjack. Now the dealer has a queen up and does in fact have an ace of their own, so this does suck as the count further drops, and I go back down to my true 2 bet of $125. I have a 14 versus 3 on this hand, and after the dealer does some pulling of their own, what do you know? That is another loss. But all those small cards bring the bets out. Max bet of $700. This time I have a 10 or 2 10s versus a 4. I consider splitting, but I decide not to when my count drops because of my 10s and the dealer busts, so I win. Here, all those 10s drops my count, so I go to my true 1 hand with $75. I have a 10 versus a dealer's 5. I double that like it's nothing, and then this is the last hand of the shoe. I get an ace, and luckily for me, the dealer cannot beat it.
Okay, so we have just left our last session of the night. Did pretty good, not exactly sharp. I'll post it up on the screen once I go ahead and count it right here. Alright, all I know is, like I said, it's kind of weird for Vegas to be a ghost town how it is right now, but all in all, a great game run session. Got about an hour in after seeing security show up and perform. I just figured it was a trespass, got up out of there, wasn't gonna risk it. If I back myself off too early, oh well, I'd rather be safe than sorry, and then allow myself to live another day.
After I decide to call that session, I go all the way up to Fremont and hit the go Nugget. Here, you see me start off with a true 2 bet of $125. I have a pair of 3s, which I split. You can't quite see it as a little bit blurry, but I end up splitting them 2 times. And with all of that going on, I do end up getting paid, and that's what's important. As the count rises, I end up stacking some of those chips and raise my bet to $450. I get a soft 19 versus a dealer 6, which is a double according to basic strategy. And unfortunately for me, the dealer makes a hand and I lose all of that money I just earned. Well, the bet's still there, so of course I go to a max bet of $700. I have a 14, which is I hit and get 17, and of course, once again, I lose a max bet.
Okay, so I just got the boot. Sorry for the music on it, but I just got the boot, and this shit sucks because I was down about right, and I was finally starting to make a comeback, and they got rid of it. I hate it. I'm glad I held it as long as I did. I know I was greatly above EV. This probably balanced me out. Probably going below EV. I know it's part of the game. It still sucks. The only thing that even makes things even kind of worth it is that I was playing rated. Because you had to play rated to play there. And I got some free food out of it. So let's take a look what I got. A large drink, a jumbo cookie, some wings, and some nachos. All that for about 80 grand. Excuse me, 8 grand. Amazing.
One last talk before I go. Unfortunately, my last session that I played was indeed my last session of the trip. It took me down just under about 7 grand. Wiped out just about over half what I made on this entire trip. It really sucks that I couldn't get it back. It really sucks that I lost, but I also knew this was a strong possibility.
not only was I slightly above EV on this trip, I've been slightly above EV on the team trip. For those of you who've seen that Biloxi video, you'll remember that we were definitely well above EV. And now, my overall career numbers, I've been above. So I'm still above and still ahead of where I mathematically should be. That doesn't make me feel any better that I won't spend much money, but that's just what we tell ourselves as any players. Like, it's part of the game. Don't let the high be too high, the low be too low. Think long term, not short term. All that stuff. And one thing that's still an adjustment to me is as I start playing these bigger bankrolls because I'm winning, that also means that the swings are just as brutal. Winning $500 is nothing now, whereas about a year ago that was amazing. Now, where it was at one point where I lost $1,000 and hurt, $1,000 loss is just like, oh, that's nothing. I can get that back in like a matter of minutes. But that $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 mark is brutal. And at first I would never fathom that because I would have my bank when I was playing six food that. But now that really hurts. And only thing you do now is kind of reflect over the session is and on to the next one. But before I go, I'm going to one last for the strip as we say goodbye to Vegas, and just know shall return. And when we do, we will turn back up. I set off a lot of radars, and we're getting ready to set off a lot more than I got out of just in time. I know one session that I was playing, the pit boss came and paid another player and said, hey, we mispaid you. I don't know when this mispay happened. None of us caught it except for, I'm guessing, surveillance, which meant we were watching the table, and I clearly indicated that my time was running short. So it's brutal. I'm still up on the trip, which makes me feel a lot better. That loss still gets to me. So we're just gonna shake it off and keep on moving forward, and we'll see you at the next stop.
So as you can tell, this video and this trip had a lot of up and downs, right? And unfortunately, that also reflected in our AV. On this trip for the days 2 and 3, we finished with about 22 hours of play, and we won about $7,618 with about an AV of about $351 an hour. Unfortunately, we were a lot higher, but took a very decent dip with that last session at the Golden Nugget. In that session alone, we lost about $6,960. That was a huge chunk of AV, especially because we only earned about $2,329 in EV from that session. Nevertheless, we did finish the session and the trip up just a little bit. We finished with about a couple $100 above EV. Now, as you may remember, at the end of day 1, we were in the red for about $500. So we did end up clawing back, and that brought our total for the trip to about $7,000 profit. Additionally, as you can see from the graph, we did end up below EV on the trip. This is probably one of the first times we've had this happen on this channel, if at all, in our career. But for EV, we were supposed to have mathematically earned $9,579, and in reality, we were only at about $7,200, down about almost $2,500. But considering how well we've done in our Biloxi trip, considering how well we've done on the year, I am not going to complain. You have to take the good with the bad. Nevertheless, that pretty much concludes this trip and this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And again, let me know how you all are feeling about this more quieter take to the video. I know I typically do more of a narration. I want to try something different where I do less narration and focus more on the actual raw gameplay, footage, and editing style. So if you all like this more than the other one, Let me know if you care more about the actual vocalization and the play-by-play. I can give more of that. But whatever works best for you all, let me know so I can make that happen. But without further ado, see you next time.